Direction 1. Because with most the temperature of the body has a great hand in the sin, your first care must be about the body to reduce it to a temper less inclined to lust. And here the chief remedy is fasting and much abstinence. And this may the better be borne, because for the most part it is persons so strong as to be able to endure it that are under this temptation. If your temptation be not strong, the less abstinence from meat and drink may serve the turn. For I would prescribe you no stronger medicine than is needful to cure your disease. But if it be violent, and lesser means will not prevail, it is better your bodies be somewhat weakened, and your souls corrupted and undone. Therefore, in this case, first, eat no breakfast nor suppers, but 1 meal a day, unless a bit or 2 of bread, and a sup or 2 of water in the morning, and yet not too full a dinner, and nothing at night. Don't drink wine or strong drink, but water, if the stomach can bear it, without sickness. And usually in such bodies it is better for you than beer. Number 3, eat no hot spices or stronger heating or windy meats. Eat lettuce and such cooling herbs. Number 4, if need require it, be often to let blood or purged with such purges as copiously evacuate serosity and not only irritate. Number 5, and oft bathe in cold water, but the physician should be advised with that they may be safely done. If you think this course too dear a cure, and had rather cherish your flesh and lust, you are not the persons that I am now directing, for I speak to such only as are willing to be cured and to use the necessary means that they may be cured. If you be not brought to this, your conscience had need of better awakening. I am sure Christ says that when the bridegroom was taken from them, his disciples should fast, Mark 2:19 and 20, and even painful Paul was in fasting often, 2 Corinthians 6:5 and 11:27, and kept under his body and brought it into subjection, lest by any means when he had preached to others himself should be cast away, 1 Corinthians 9:27. And I am sure that the ancient Christians that lived in solitude and ate many of them nothing but bread and water, or meaner fare than bread, did not think this cure too dear. Yea, smaller necessities than this engaged them in fasting, 1 Corinthians 7:5. This unclean devil will scarcely be cast out but by prayer and fasting, Mark 9:29. And I must tell you that fullness does naturally cherish lust, as fuel does the fire. Fullness of bread prepared the sodomites for their filthy lusts. And it is no more wonder that a stuffed paunch has a lustful fury than that the water runs into the pipes when the cistern is full, or than it is a wonder to see a dunghill bear weeds, or a carrion to be full of crawling maggots. Plutarch speaks of a Spartan that, being asked why Lycurgus made no law against adultery, answered, "There are no adulterers with us." But saith the other, "What if there should be any?" Saith the Spartan, "Then he is to pay an ox so great as shall stand on this side the river Tagat, and drink of the river Eurota." Saith the other, "That is impossible." And saith the Spartan, "And how can there be an adulterer at Sparta, where riches, delights, and strange attire or ornament are a disgrace or reproach? And contrary to this, shamefacedness, modesty, and the observance of any due obedience to magistrates is an honor and praise. And if rich men think it their privilege to fare sumptuously and satisfy their appetites, they must take it for their privilege to feed their lust. But God gives no man plenty for such uses, nor is it any excuse for eating and drinking much because you have much, any more than it would be to your cooks to put much salt in your meat more than in poorer men's, because you have more. He that observes the filthy and pernicious effects of that gluttony which is accounted rich men's honor and felicity will never envy them that miserable happiness, but say rather as Antisthenes, "Let it befall the children of my enemies to live in delights, but that the curse is too heavy for a Christian to use to any of his enemies. But for himself he must remember that he is a servant of a holy God, and has a holy work to do, and holy sacrifice to offer to him, and therefore must not pamper his flesh, as if he were preparing a sacrifice for Venus. For as 1 Thessalonians 4:3 and 4, this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication, that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor, not in the lust of concupiscence, as the Gentiles that know not God. As a philosopher answered Antagonus, when he asked him whether he should go to a merry feast that he was invited to, "You are the son of a king." So it is an answer enough for a Christian against temptations to voluptuousness. I am the Son of the Most Holy God. If you be invited to feasts where urgency or allurement is like to make you break your bounds, don't go, or go back when you see the bait. As Epaminondas and Plutarch, finding excess at a feast that he was invited to, went away when he saw it, saying, I came to dine and not to be wanton or luxurious, to support my body for duty and not to pamper it for lust. Plutarch marvels at the folly of those men that detest the charms of witches lest they hurt them, and fear not but love the charms of dishes which hurt 1,000 where witches hurt one. Withdraw the fuel of excess, and the fire of lust will of itself go out, or at least this enemy must be besieged and starved out when it cannot be conquered by storm. Direction 2. Take heed of idleness, and be wholly taken up in diligent business of your lawful callings, when you are not exercised in the more immediate service of God. David in his idleness or vacancy catched those sparks of lust, which in his troubles in military life he was preserved from. Idleness is the soul, the culture, and the opportunity of lust. The idle person goes to school to the devil. He sets all other employment aside, that the devil may have time to teach him and treat with him and solicit him to evil. Do you wonder that he is thinking on lustful objects, or that he is taken up in feasting and drinking and chambering and wantonness? Why, he has nothing else to do, whereas a laborious, diligent person has a body subdued and hardened against the mollities and effeminateness of the wanton, and a mind employed and taken up with better things. Leave your body and mind no leisure to think of tempting filthy objects, or to look after them. As Hiram says, be still doing some work, that the devil may always find you busy. And do not for your fleshly ease remit your labors and indulge your flesh. Rise early and go late to bed, and put yourself upon a necessity of diligence all the day. Undertake and engage yourself in as much business as you are able to go through, that if thou would, thou may not be able to give any indulgence to the flesh. For if you still be not pressed by necessity, lust will serve itself by idleness, and the flesh will lie down if it feel not the spur. Therefore are the rich and idle more lustful and filthy than the poor laboring people. The same bed is a place of sloth and lust. Hear a heathen, and don't refuse to imitate him. Seneca saith, no day passes me in idleness. Part of the night I reserve for studies. I do not purposely set myself to sleep, but yield to it when it overcomes me. When my eyes are wearied with watching and are falling, I hold them to their work. I had rather it went ill with me than delicately or tenderly. If you be delicate or tender, the mind by little and little is effeminate, and is dissolved into the similitude of the idleness and sloth in which it lies. I sleep very little and take but a short nap, and it suffices me to have ceased watching. Sometimes I know that I slept, sometimes I do but suspect it. Aristotle says, nature made nothing to be idle, and Plato calls idleness a plague of mortals. If you be resolved to serve and please your flesh, and never ask advice against your lust, for it is a part of the pleasure of it. And then no wonder if you refuse as physic is too bitter, and the remedy is too dear. But if you be resolved to be cured and to be saved, stick not at the pains. Give up yourself totally to your business, and lust will die for lack. And 3, if you would be free from lust, keep far enough from the tempting object. If possible, don't dwell in the house with any person that you feel yourself endangered by. If that be not possible, avoid their company, especially in private. Abhor all lascivious and immodest actions. Do you give yourself the liberty of wanton dalliance and lustful embracements, and yet feign to be free from lust? Will you put your hand into the fire when you are afraid of being burnt? Either you have the power of your own heart, or you have not. If you have, why do you not quench your lust? If you have not, why does it cast you upon greater temptations and put it further out of your power than it is? Fly from a tempting object for your safety as you would fly from an enemy for your life. These loving enemies are more dangerous than hating enemies. They get the key of our hearts and come in and steal our treasures with our consent or without resistance, when an open enemy is suspected and shut out. Direction 4. Command your eyes, as in Job 31:1. Make a covenant with them, that you may not think on tempting objects. Shut these windows, and you preserve your heart. Don't look upon any alluring object. A look that has kindled the fire of lust in many a heart has ended in the fire of hell. It is easier to stop your lust at these outward doors and drive it out when it has tainted your heart. If you cannot do this much, how can you do more? An ungoverned eye fetches fire to burn the soul that should have governed it. Directions 5. Don't linger in the pleasant snares of lust if you feel but the least beginnings of it, but quickly cast water on the first discerned spark before it break out into a flame. The amorous poet can teach you this. If ever delay be dangerous, it is here, for delay will occasion such engagements to sin that you must come off at a far dearer rate. If the meat be undigestible, it is best not to look on it. It is the next best not to touch or taste it, but if once it go down, it will cost you sickness and pain to get it up again, and if you do not, you perish by it. Direction 6. Abhor lascivious of modest speech, as such words come from either vain or filthy hearts and show the absence of the fear of God, so they tend to make the hearer like the speaker. And if your ears grow but patient and reconcilable to such discourse, you have lost much of the innocence already. Christians must abhor the mentioning of such filthy sins in any other manner but such as tends to bring the hearers to abhor them. Be not deceived. Evil words corrupt good manners. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace to the hearers, and don't grieve the Holy Spirit of God. Corrupt communication is rotten, stinking communication, and none but dogs and crows love carry on. But fornication and all uncleanness and inordinate lust or luxury, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting. Number 7. Abhor the covering of filthy lust with handsome names to make it the more acceptable. Their discourse is more dangerous that would thus dress up an ugly lust, and theirs that speak of it in nasty language. Thus, among the brutish party, it goes under the names of love, and having a mistress, and courting, and such like. But as one said, that it is cited in Stebus, it is doubled. Lust that is commonly called love, and doubled love, is stark madness. If filthiness will walk abroad, let it go for filthiness, and appear as it is. Direction 8. Avoid the reading of romances and love stories, which are the library of Venus, or the devil's books of the lustful art, to cover over filthiness with cleanly names, and bewitch the fantasies of fools with fine words, to make men conceive of the ready way to hell under the notions and images of excellency, beauty, love, and gallantry, and by representing strong and amorous passions, to stir up the same passions in the reader, as he that will needs read a conjuring book is well enough served if devils come about his ears, so that they will needs read such romances and other books of the burning art. It is just with God to suffer an unclean devil to possess them, and to suffer them to catch the fever of lust, which may not only burn up the heart, but cause that pernicious deliriation in the brain, which is the ordinary symptom of it. Direction 9. Avoid all wanton stage plays and dancings, which either cover the odiousness of lust or produce temptations to it. As God has his preachers and holy assemblies and exercises for the communion of saints and the stirring up of love and holiness, so these are Satan's instruments and assemblies and exercises for the communion of sinners and for the stirring up of lust and filthiness. They that will go to the devil's church deserve to be possessed with his principles and numbered with his disciples. The ancient Christians were very severe against the seeing of these spectacular shows or plays, especially in any of the clergy. Direction 10. Avoid all tempting unnecessary ornaments or attire, in regarding or gazing on them upon others. It is a precocious, lustful desire to seem comely and amiable, which it is the common cause of this excess. The folly or lust of both of fashionists and gaudy gallants is so conspicuous to all in their affected dress that never did pride more cross itself than in such publications of such disgraceful folly or lust. They that take on them to be adversaries to lust, and yet are careful when they present themselves to sight, to appear in the most adorned manner, and do all that harlots can do to make themselves a snare to fools, do put the charitable hard to it, whether to believe that it is their tongues or their backs that are the liar. As Aram saith, thou deserves hell, though none be the worse for you brought the poison, if there had been any drink to it. Let your apparel be suited not only to your rank, but to your disease. If you be inclined to lust, go the more meanly clad yourself, and gaze not on the ornaments of others. In direction 11, don't think on your tempting object as it is within, and as shortly will appear without. For ordinary is it for that which you call beauty to be the portion of a fool, and a fair skin to cover a silly, childish, peevish mind, and a soul that is enslaved to the devil. As Solomon saith in Proverbs 11:22, as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman without discretion. And will you lust after such an adorned thing? Think also what a dunghill of filth is covered with these ornaments, that it would turn your stomach if you saw what is within them. And think what a face that would be if it were but covered with the pox, and what a face it will be when sickness or age has consumed or wrinkled it. And think what your admired carcass will be when it has lain a few days in the grave. Then you would have a little mind to it, and how quickly will that be? O man, there is nothing truly amiable in the creature but the image of God, the wisdom and holiness and righteousness of the soul. Love this, then, if you will love with wisdom, with purity and safety, for the love of purity is pure and safe. Direction 12, think on your own death, and how you hasten to another world. Is a lustful heart a seemly temper for one that is ready to die, and ready to see God, and come into that world where there is nothing but pure, and the holy doth abide?